And in my mind, I received bad service. And not only that, I didn't even get a drink. So what am I tipping for? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I don't know. Was I wrong for asking for my tip back? I didn't get a drink, and I got bad service, in my opinion. I don't know. Anyway, was I wrong? Good day.
Starbucks used to set the standard for trendy coffee in America. Not anymore. Even so, a lot of people are still willing to pay the high prices because they believe they are at least getting better ingredients and safer products in return. But what if even that is not true? Then a strange powder caused all the doubts about Starbucks to explode. Starbucks says it is safe to use in food. But is that really enough? If there is truly nothing to worry about, why are the very people who have to use it every day speaking out, and why has Starbucks still not clearly explained what is happening behind the counter? Today we are going to hear what the people behind the counter have to say, how far Starbucks has gone in explaining it, and why the process behind making a drink is starting to feel more like an assembly line than a high-end coffee shop. Because the biggest question is not just whether that powder is something to worry about, it is why Americans keep paying for an old reputation even as the quality continues to decline. The suspicious powder that set off all the doubts about Starbucks. Starbucks has been criticized for years. High prices, drinks that are way too sweet, and coffee that no longer feels worth the money. But customers kept buying. Money kept crossing the counter. The complaints kept coming back, then fading away. Until something that had only ever appeared behind the counter was brought straight into public view by the employees themselves. Take a look at what they are holding. That is blending powder, a powder used in some of Starbucks' new blended drinks. It gets poured into a container, scooped into the blender, then left clinging to the counter and the surrounding work area. It is only a few seconds, but that is enough to make you wonder, what is this powder for? And why do the very people who have to handle it every day seem uneasy about it? Seeing a white powder is not enough to call it toxic. The two baristas react very strongly, even using some frightening words. But their reactions cannot replace test results, and a few actions performed in front of a camera are not a scientific experiment. I noticed something else. Customers only see the finished drink, while baristas have to open the bag of powder and handle it throughout their shift. Customers get a drink that is smooth, looks good, and does not separate quickly. Baristas stand in front of the ingredient while it is still dry, scooping it up and pouring it into the blender over and over again. Blending powder helps blended drinks come out smoother, separate more slowly, and keep their appearance longer. Customers get a drink that looks consistent. Baristas are the ones who have to add that step to every order. Not long after Starbucks Workers United said it had received concerns from baristas and asked the company to provide more information about the new powder. Once the union spoke up, Starbucks could no longer treat this as just the reaction of two employees in a video clip. The union has not proven that blending powder causes illness, but it has shown that the people who use it directly want to know what they are being exposed to and what they should do to reduce the risk. If I had to open the bag and scoop that powder several times a day, I would also want to know how to handle it while breathing in as little as possible. A vague reassurance does not help when workers are asking about something happening right in front of them. Then one barista explained more specifically what was making them concerned. What she says right at the start is worth noting. The powder is listed as safe for use in food. But when baristas pour it from the bag into a container, then scoop it into the blender, she says some of the dust can become airborne. The union said it had received reports of headaches, sore throats, coughing, and hives. At this point, we still cannot say blending powder directly caused those symptoms. We do not have dust exposure measurements from each store. We do not have enough medical records to connect every reaction to this powder, and we also do not know how many baristas have experienced something similar. But put yourself in their shoes. Customers take the finished drink and leave. Baristas stay behind with the bag of dry powder, the scoop, the blender, and the same motion repeated throughout the shift. If that were my job, I would want to know how much I might be breathing in and how thoroughly Starbucks had tested it. The phrase safe for use in food may make customers feel less worried. It is not enough to make the person behind the counter feel safe. To understand whether those concerns have any real basis, we need to take a close look at the ingredient at the center of the controversy. Does safe to drink mean safe for employees to breathe in the powder? Silica is the part most likely to scare people. When they hear that name, a lot of people immediately think of stone dust, lung disease, and warnings from industrial workplaces. But is the kind found in blending powder really the same thing? Simply put, silicon dioxide is used in many powdered foods to prevent clumping. It helps the powder stay loose flow more easily and mix better. The type commonly linked to serious warnings about lung disease is crystalline silica. The form used in food is amorphous silica. So the available information does not suggest that Starbucks is putting industrial stone dust into your drink. I'm not going to call a product toxic just because the name of an ingredient sounds scary. It would take much stronger evidence to make that claim, but knowing this is not crystalline silica only makes customers feel less worried. Baristas still have a different question. Blending powder helps blended drinks come out smoother, clump less separate more slowly, and hold their appearance longer after leaving the blender. Because of that, a drink made in California can look almost the same as one made in New York. The color is nearly the same, the thickness is nearly the same, and the finished product looks closer to the advertising photo. To put it plainly, Starbucks does not add this powder to make the coffee taste better. They use it to make the product more stable, keep it looking good longer, and make it easier to reproduce across thousands of stores. Of course, a major chain wants every drink to look the same, but customers are paying a high price for something that feels highly personalized, while the formula behind it is designed to produce the same result over and over again. Starbucks gets a consistent drink to sell. Customers receive the finished product. Baristas are the ones opening the bag of powder, scooping it into the blender, and standing next to that ingredient throughout their shift. That is exactly why I cannot see this as nothing more than a question of whether an ingredient is allowed to be used. For customers, there is currently no basis for saying that one blended refresher will make you sick, but you still have the right to know how that smooth texture and slow separation are created. Starbucks promotes the colors, the fruit, and the refreshing experience. The powder that helps maintain the texture received almost no attention until employees brought it into public view. You should not have to study chemistry before ordering a drink, but you have the right to know what you are paying for. Starbucks says the blending powder contains a small amount of food, grade silica does not contain crystalline silica, is safe for use in food, and helps the ingredients mix more consistently. After hearing Starbucks explain it that way, it is easy to think everything has been cleared up, food-grade silica, not the crystalline kind, and safe to mix into drinks. But that is still not what baristas are asking. They do not just want to know whether this powder is allowed in food. They want to know what happens when the bag is opened, the powder is poured into a container, and then scooped into the blender many times during a shift. If dust rises right in front of their faces, how are they supposed to handle it? How many times might a barista repeat that process every day? How thoroughly have the reports of coughing, sore throats, headaches, and hives been investigated? Starbucks has not clearly addressed those questions. Knowing the name of the ingredient still does not tell us how much an employee might breathe in. Exposure also depends on how the powder is poured, how much dust becomes airborne, how well ventilated the store is, and how many times the process is repeated. I am not saying blending powder definitely caused the reported symptoms. We do not have measurements from each store, we do not have complete medical records, and we also do not know how many baristas have experienced the same thing. But not knowing the exact cause does not mean employees should have to go online and figure out how to protect themselves. When Starbucks brings a new ingredient into its stores, the company needs to clearly explain how employees should open, pour, and scoop it while keeping dust to a minimum. If there are health complaints, the company needs to investigate them and give a direct answer to the people working with the product. The union is asking for more complete safety information and clearer instructions. I do not think that is an unreasonable demand. Those things should have been available from day one. Customers have been reassured about what is inside the drink. Baristas still do not clearly know what happens while the powder is dry and the same process is repeated in front of them throughout their shift. And even if Starbucks provides the proper handling instructions, there is still another issue. Are baristas actually given enough time to handle it carefully? Every order has to be done in 4 minutes. How much time do baristas have left to be careful? 4 minutes sounds great when you are the one waiting at the counter. I do not want to buy a drink and stand there for 15 minutes either. But now try switching places. In those 4 minutes, the barista has to read the order, choose the cup, get the right kind of milk, add syrup, ice foam toppings, and handle every special request. One person wants less ice, someone else switches to oat milk. A mobile order is already due for pickup. The drive-thru is still waiting. For a drink that uses blending powder, the employee also has to scoop the right amount, pour it into the blender, and try to keep the powder from becoming airborne. The clock does not stop just because they need to be more careful, and this is where something feels wrong to me. If the powder needs to be poured slowly to reduce dust, employees need enough time to pour it slowly. But Starbucks treats the 4-minute goal as a sign that the system is working well. One side requires a gentler touch. The other side is still counting every minute. Baristas are stuck right in the middle. If they work fast, they are the ones standing closest to the dust. If they slow down, the orders behind them start piling up, customers get impatient, and service times get longer. No matter what they choose, the pressure still falls on the person holding the scoop. I do not believe the 4-minute target automatically makes the job unsafe, but I also do not accept the idea that the company can add another step to the recipe and act like employees do not need more time. Every milk change is another step, every layer of foam is another step, every customization is another step, every scoop of blending powder is another step too. The longer the recipe gets, the more time it should take. You cannot keep adding more work and still demand that baristas move faster, as though everything happens with the push of a button. And that is when I started asking, does Starbucks really need this powder? When it comes to the drink itself, blending powder does not provide the caffeine, the fruit flavor, or the main liquid. Without it, the drink might separate faster, feel less smooth, or fail to hold its appearance as long as it does in the ads. But the drink would still exist. For Starbucks, the value of this powder lies somewhere else. It helps a drink from one store look like a drink from another store. It helps the texture last longer while a mobile order sits and waits. It reduces the differences from one drink to the next, and it allows a complicated recipe to be repeated thousands of times with almost the same result. To put it plainly, blending powder may not be all that necessary for the drink itself, but it is very useful for a system that wants every drink to be smooth, attractive, and consistent. I understand why Starbucks wants that. A major chain always wants customers to receive the same product everywhere. But we need to look at the full cost of that benefit. Starbucks gets consistency, customers get a better-looking drink. Baristas get another ingredient to open another step to complete, and another risk they have to balance against speed. What frustrates me most is how easily customers and baristas can be pushed against each other. Customers paid a high price, so they expect their drinks on time. Baristas are trying to complete an increasingly long recipe in a very short amount of time. One side starts losing patience, the other side starts feeling stressed. But customers did not create that recipe. Baristas did not set the 4-minute target either. Starbucks is the one deciding how many steps a drink needs, how good it has to look, and how quickly it has to be served. If those three demands cannot all exist together under real working conditions, the company needs to fix the system. It cannot let customers get angry at employees, then leave employees to figure out how to move faster while still protecting their own safety. Telling baristas to pour more slowly sounds easy, but if they still have to handle the same number of orders, the same number of customizations, and the same time target, that is not a solution. It is just one more responsibility placed on people who are already overloaded. To actually solve the problem, Starbucks needs to look at the recipe, the way mobile orders pile up the number of people working each shift, and the real amount of time each drink takes to make. Otherwise, the company is only dealing with the powder in the air while ignoring the entire system that forces employees to rush all the time. And when a coffee shop starts measuring success by the minute, controlling every layer of texture and demanding that every drink look the same across thousands of locations, I no longer see it as an ordinary coffee shop. I start seeing a beverage assembly line. Starbucks sells a premium experience but runs like fast food. Take away the green logo, the background music, and the smell of coffee. What is left is a system that takes orders, puts ingredients together, hands over a cup, and immediately moves on to the next person. And when you look at it that way, Starbucks feels more and more like fast food than a coffee shop. Fast food is not just burgers and fries, it is a way of organizing a store. Products have to be easy to reproduce, employees have to follow fixed recipes, orders have to keep moving, and the result at one location cannot be too different from the result at another. Starbucks operates by exactly that logic. The menu keeps filling up with colorful drinks, syrups, foam, cream toppings, and limited time versions. Some of them have almost nothing to do with coffee. They are designed to catch your eye, show up well on social media, and feel new enough to bring customers back to try the next one. I have no problem with a sweet blended drink. Drink it if you like it, but call it what it is. A sugary layered drink designed to get attention does not suddenly become a premium coffee experience just because it is sold in a Starbucks cup. What matters even more is how those drinks are made. The amount of syrup is already set. The lines on the cup are already there. The number of scoops, the blending time, and the order of every step are already decided. The barista is not standing there deciding whether the drink needs a little more of something or adjusting it based on personal judgment. They have to recreate the exact recipe match, the exact appearance, and still finish in time for the next order. That is standardized production. It just happens in front of customers instead of inside a factory. Order-ahead apps, drive-through service and delivery have pushed Starbucks even further away from the old coffee shop image. The store is slowly becoming a pickup point. An order appears on a screen, a cup is placed on a shelf, and the customer walks in, grabs it, and leaves. The space is still there, but it is no longer the center of the experience. People used to accept paying more because Starbucks also sold them a place to sit a break in the middle of the day and the feeling that they could stay a while. Now that value is getting thinner and thinner, while the ability to process as many orders as possible is becoming more important. And this is what I find hardest to justify. Starbucks wants the efficiency of fast food, but it still wants customers to pay for a premium experience. The process is more standardized. Customers place more of their own orders. Employees have to handle more streams of orders. The products are designed for mass production, but the bill still makes you think you just bought something special. So when customers say Starbucks is not what it used to be, they are not just being nostalgic. They are realizing that the deal has changed. They are still paying a lot, but the space has less value, the service feels less personal, the product feels more like it came off an assembly line. Starbucks is still a place that sells coffee, but the way it operates now has almost every feature of fast food just wrapped in better colors, a more complicated menu, and a higher price. And as the premium part becomes harder and harder to see, customers will start asking the question Starbucks cannot avoid: is the amount they are paying still worth what they are actually getting? Is Starbucks rebuilding its value or just finding new ways to make customers pay more. One trip to Starbucks is easy to overlook. $6, $7, or $8 is not enough to make most people immediately break a habit. But when that amount comes up several times a week, customers start looking at the cup differently. They stop asking whether the new drink looks appealing. They start asking what they just paid for. High prices can still be acceptable when the quality, service, and experience are all worth it. But when the drinks are inconsistent, the stores are more crowded, employees are more stressed, and the next purchase no longer feels special, the bill starts getting harder to justify. What bothers me most is when customers have to lower their own standards just to feel less bad about the money they spent. The drink is not as good as they expected, but they tell themselves it is good enough. The service is not what it used to be, but they think the store is probably just busy today. A premium brand cannot keep depending on customers constantly finding excuses to forgive an experience that keeps getting worse. And a lot of people have stopped complaining. They make coffee at home, switch to a local coffee shop, stop at a convenience store, or only come back when they have a gift card. An angry comment can be ignored, but when customers change their morning routine, Starbucks does not just lose one order. It loses the place it once had in that person's life. This kind of change usually happens very quietly. People do not announce that money is getting tighter. They just start cutting back on coffee shop visits, meeting people outside less often, and choosing cheaper options. One small pleasure after another disappears before a family admits that its budget is no longer as comfortable as it used to be. Starbucks is trying to bring customers and employees back by renovating stores, talking more about the coffeehouse feeling, adding more tipping options, and offering bonuses based on store performance. I recognize that some of these changes could help baristas earn more money. But when I look at how they are designed, one question stands out very clearly: who is being asked to pay for this recovery? When the tip screen turns toward the customer, someone who has already paid a high price is asked whether they want to pay even more so the person who made the drink can earn a better income. I do not blame baristas for needing tips. I object to a system that turns customer generosity into a way to make up for income the company should be taking more direct responsibility for. Bonuses based on store performance also sound very appealing, but baristas do not choose. The store location decide how many customers come in control, how many people work each shift, or set the targets coming from upper management. When a store reaches its goals, the company calls it sharing success. When it does not, employees lose the bonus, even though many of the factors are outside their control. Customers stand in front of the tip screen. Baristas stand in front of the performance board. Both are being asked to contribute more, while the power to set prices, wages, schedules, and staffing still belongs to company leadership. I am not against Starbucks making a comeback. I am against a comeback built by taking more money from customers and more effort from employees than calling it a better experience. Higher sales do not necessarily mean trust has returned. People may keep buying because it is convenient, because it is familiar, or because they have not found another option yet, even while feeling more frustrated every time they pay. So how can we tell whether Starbucks is actually fixing the problem instead of just making the stores and the reports look better? There are a few very specific signs that both customers and baristas should watch before they keep spending money or keep placing their trust in the company. Starbucks created the process but left customers and workers to figure out how to deal with it. At this point, the easiest answer may be to stop buying Starbucks. You have every right to do that. But I do not want this to end with customers simply walking away while baristas figure out on their own how to avoid the dust. If everyone quietly adapts, Starbucks barely has to fix anything. A personal choice can help you avoid one product today. It cannot replace the responsibility of the company that designed the recipe, brought the ingredient into its stores, and required employees to use it every day. As a customer, you do not need to become a chemistry expert. You only need to ask a few clear questions. Have the ingredients been fully explained? Does this ingredient add flavor, or is it mainly there to preserve the color and texture? Is the product still worth what you are paying? And when controversy comes up, is the company addressing what people are actually worried about or only choosing the easiest part to explain? I would be cautious about a brand that talks constantly about fruit color and a refreshing feeling, but barely mentions the powder that helps the drink keep that appearance. Customers do not need to understand every chemical formula, but they have the right to know what is being added to something they are paying for. Baristas need more than someone telling them to be careful. They need to know exactly how to open, pour, and scoop that powder. They need clear safety information, a way to report symptoms, and a process for investigating when several people say they are coughing or experiencing sore throats or irritation. They also need enough time and enough people working each shift to follow those instructions properly. Telling employees to pour more slowly while keeping the same pressure to move fast is not protecting them. It is placing another responsibility on the person standing right in front of the dust. If the company you worked for brought in a new ingredient and then left you to search online for instructions on how to handle it, would you accept that I would not? We also need to keep the limits of what we know very clear. Starbucks is using blending powder. Some baristas have publicly described symptoms. The union has requested more information. Starbucks has responded about its safety for use in food. but there is not enough evidence to say customers are being poisoned, that the powder definitely causes lung damage, or that Starbucks knows it is dangerous and is deliberately hiding it. I do not need to exaggerate to see the problem. The fact that workers have to ask themselves what they are breathing in already shows that the company has not provided enough information. Customers are responsible for what they buy. Baristas are responsible for following instructions. But Starbucks has to take responsibility for the product training staffing time and the way it responds when employees say they do not feel safe. So what do you think? Has Starbucks answered enough questions? Or is safe for use in food just the easiest part to talk about, while what baristas really need to know is still being left behind the counter? This is just one viral incident. But looked at another way, it also shows a positive side of Starbucks. Employees are willing to speak up, customers are willing to ask questions, and the company is being forced to explain more clearly what it is selling. A lot of drinks like this can easily be made at home, and I believe more and more people will choose to do that because videos like this make us stop and ask ourselves, what are we drinking, what are we paying for, and who is carrying the risk behind the cup? What about you? Do you still drink Starbucks? After seeing what just happened, do you think Starbucks is simply improving its recipes, or has the brand moved too far away from what a coffee shop was originally supposed to be? Leave your thoughts below and subscribe to the channel because I will be coming back to more issues that major brands usually do not want customers looking at too closely.